Just a moment.
There are a fair amount of old/used game stores near me. Walking through them sometimes feels like walking through an animal shelter, shelf after shelf of video games looking for a place to call home. Every store seems to have that one shelf with the same things on it though. A bunch of copies of Power Drome, various insert name here racing games, and this, Red Ninja End of Honor. It's a product of Trangi Studios, which itself was a joint venture between two other studios, Airtrain and Opus. Trangi is also known for nothing else because this was the only game they made before shutting down.
Not good. Not good.
You take the role of Kurenai, who at a young age saw her father murdered by ninjas and was left for dead hanging from a tree. He was killed so they could steal his blueprints for a goddamn chain gun.
Soaking into this field lies hundreds of years of training and dedication and skill, felled by a machine without honor.
I like to think this is the Japanese version of that Indiana Jones sword fight scene. Somehow she survives and gets rescued by a ninja clan, a different ninja clan, and eventually she receives training to avenge her father. Just as an aside, Kurenai means deep red or crimson in Japanese. Based on that and the title of the game, I'm just going to assume her last name is Ninja. Most of the game is spent trying to get from point A to point B without getting killed by guards or traps. Kurenai can get around this either by killing everyone, or using stealth to kill only the absolutely unavoidable guards. While she has several secondary weapons she can pick up, the two main ones, in other words the ones she can't run out of, are a short blade she refuses to let go of even when climbing walls, and the Tetsugen, a long wire which can have a hook, blade, or weight attached to the end. Outside of combat, it's used to grapple and swing across gaps or climb up walls. If this sounds a lot like any of the Tenchu games, you're probably right, but I haven't played any of those. I know, I need to fix that. Stealth kills involve just pressing a button when close enough and not detected. These are highly encouraged, as not only can guards call for reinforcements, enemies killed before they can see you often drop items, be they tools like kunai and blow darts, or healing items like potions and elixirs. Sounds great, but there's one thing that completely undermines it: the Tetsugen. It can be aimed at the torso, legs, or head of enemies with an awkward aim after throwing it but before it hits the target system. Doing this to an unsuspecting guard's head will decap them and count as a stealth kill, meaning you don't have to be any more than 20 feet away and still get rewarded like you got a legit knife-to-throat kill. The Tetsugen also trivializes most enemy encounters. Being able to stay well out of range of every melee weapon and run around with the wire to damage other enemies after it attaches is kinda cool, but also means I'm rarely worried about being caught, since Kurenai can abuse it to wipe out groups of 3, 4, at one point 6 guards at a time. Although that's assuming it doesn't lock onto the wrong enemy, which happens a lot. At least when you decap someone, as an added bonus, you can kick their heads around like soccer balls. Other stealth elements don't seem to work properly. Hiding bodies so guards don't find them is a thing, except some bodies can't be moved, particularly if they've lost a limb or been sliced in half. Enemies are supposed to raise the alarm if they find any dead guards, except for when they walk directly over a corpse and don't react at all. There are regular explanations for game mechanics, which get introduced at a steady pace through the first few stages. But what direction I got from the game seemed like it showed up at the wrong time. One boss fight has a guide on how to pull down tree branches with a hook, which plays a couple phases before you're supposed to do it. That's a minor example though. A worse one is when the game instructs you how to pin yourself high up on a wall in narrow corridors and get the drop on enemies. The guide for this happens in a series of narrow corridors with no enemies and spike traps that can reach high enough to hit you even with the wall trick. I can only assume there might be enemies here on hard mode, but otherwise this placement doesn't make sense. Red Ninja's story isn't especially bad, but it's not especially good either. It takes a predictable turn very early on, and everyone seems to just have one dull character trait that gets beaten into the ground by the 2-hour mark of a game that's 4 to 5 times that length. Also, how come some characters speak with a Japanese accent while others don't?
If this weapon falls into the hands of Nobunaga, he will rule us all. Let me see the one who assassinated Oda's vassal.
Kurenai, show your face to Lord Shinjin Takeda.
This is not the kind of thing to go halfway on, guys. It sounds awkward otherwise. That said, nothing in the story is as bad as the game's 2 biggest problems. The first is the controls. Kurenai speeds up as she runs, but does it so suddenly it's easy to lose control. Don't do this too close to a wall or she'll start running up it. It's possible to link things like wall runs and jumps and grapple swings, but Kurenai often won't aim where she needs to, or have her momentum die at the worst time, or jump in entirely the wrong direction. That said, the controls are made worse by Red Ninja's biggest problem, the camera. It loves to swing up, down, and around at any sudden change of direction, and given how close it is to Kurenai, this happens all the time. It also tends to lock into place or refuse to swing to the side at terrible times, making it harder to tell things like where enemies are, or how to jump and not miss a platform entirely. There's one thing the camera doesn't miss, and it's particularly thanks to Kurenai's outfit. You've probably noticed by now, but Red Ninja exists in a near constant state of upskirt, even when just running with the camera at its default position. The whole conceit of this game isn't solid gameplay or smooth controls or nice music, though I do like some of the soundtrack. It's Kurenai. Not anything Kurenai says or does, just Kurenai herself.
Remind me of when I was that age. Though I did have more of a chest.
I don't say that purely because of the near-constant panty shot, or because she's a ninja wearing some of the least ninja-appropriate attire. A bright red robe and exposed pale legs are not good for stealth, or because there's an in-game mechanic to seduce a guard and kill them, something I didn't get to work more than once, or because this game's promotion included hiring a model to cosplay as Kurenai and visit Japanese gaming magazines. I say that because I looked at the list of accolades this game earned, and only one of them had to do with the game itself. Games Radar's list of franchises with untapped potential. As my high school band director once said, potential means you haven't done anything yet. As for the achievements it does have, FHM Philippines' top 9 sexiest babes in games, Yu-Gi-Oh! Network's top 25 hot ninja girls, 43rd on Play Games' list of game chicks, Kurenai appearing in a 2004 issue of Playboy. There's a word for this particular promotion, DESPERATION. Red Ninja End of Honor leads a bit toward the lower end of middle-of-the-road games. It doesn't particularly excel at anything, and the experience overstays its welcome by the midway point. But it's not so bad, outside of when the game asks you to do more than the janky movement can usually handle. It wants to be stealthy and action-packed, but it doesn't handle the balance between the two all that well. It tries, and fails, to have its cake and eat it too. No, I didn't mean that kind of cake.